So hello and welcome to this webinar called Breaking Email. My name is Stuart Snooks and I've worked as an email and workplace productivity consultant since 1996, specialising in email for the past 12 years. And in that time I've been researching and then teaching clients many of the proven best practices for dealing effectively with email by way of conference presentations, seminars, hands-on training workshops, online webinars and one-on-one coaching. And while I've been delighted with the results and the feedback over the years, at an nagging sense is missing, that there must be another level for getting control of email. And I believe this missing piece has been provided by LeanMail, a software application for Outlook that makes best practice email management both simple and repeatable. And after working with LeanMail for the past 6 months, I believe this will revolutionise the way we handle our email. So I've invited Michael Hoffman to join us to tell us more about LeanMail. Michael is an American who now lives in Barcelona in Spain. He's the CEO of Trendia, a consultant that specialises in coaching, training and supplying cutting-edge tools to knowledge workers at all levels. He's the founder of LeanMail and continues to work on other productivity solutions and tools to help leaders and teams. So, Michael, welcome to Australia.
Good day, mate. How are you going, Stuart?
Nice try.
I got to tell you, I'm a bit stuffed at this hour, but you know, I've got my esky beside me to keep me going through the night. How's that for basically all the Aussie expressions I know?
That's it, is it? It's because it's 11 p.m. at your end, isn't it?
Yeah, it's 11. Actually, coming on. It's actually 11:30. But I'm very happy to be here, and I've got a lot of energy and excitement about this webinar. Just a little bit about myself. I'm the founder of LeanMail. I don't want to say the inventor. Because there are so many people who are involved with that process. But there are other areas that I work in. I'm an executive facilitator. Some people will call that a coach. I like to say facilitator. I work a lot with helping companies understand how to use communications in the best way, which tools to use, how to use them better. Also, I do consulting in the application of lean tools and methods for knowledge workers.
That keep you busy.
Yes, absolutely. So I thought I would set the stage for us by stealing a slide from a guy named Roger Martin from the Rotman School of Management at the University of Toronto. Now, Roger, he's a brilliant scholar and Harvard graduate. And I was watching his webinar just last week while I was in the gym, actually. I was listening to the webinar, not watching it. And he described something very important. And that is that as complexity increases, we require software to simplify these processes. And if you notice that's really how we're coping with all the complexity that we have today. But there's a challenge that we have, especially in the area of email, and that is that the improvements from the Microsoft side in Outlook they've been improving. And at some point, Microsoft will have to pay more attention to this paradox. Now, I'm a big Microsoft fan. Nothing against Microsoft. Actually, our software requires Outlook, so nothing against them. But if you think about it, Outlook has changed a little bit over the course of 25 years. But the way we've been processing email actually hasn't. Not very much at all. And one of the reasons why we're meeting today is because a lot of people are frustrated with the tool that hasn't advanced enough. And that's why there have been plenty of partners who've come out with different applications. And I guess we're one of them, but hopefully you'll find that we have a special difference.
Yes, there's been a lot of them, haven't there? I think I'm aware of about 66 different applications.
Okay.
Over the years.
All right, 66. That's quite a number. If you think about how we spend our day. Now, I realize that not everybody in our audience is using Outlook, but probably most, because 70% of all knowledge workers are using Outlook, thereabouts. And it used to be that Outlook was a replacement for letter writing, but today it's very much the center of our work universe. You know, in some way or another, we're interacting with email all throughout our day. It's touching every part. And if you think about how our day is spent, you know, we're planning, we're processing, making phone calls, doing projects and admin work. And email is not really, it's pretty much inseparable from all of those activities. And for most knowledge workers, and I'm sure there are going to be some exceptions in our audience, but for most knowledge workers, we're talking 2 to 3 hours or 25 to 40% of your day. Now, those exceptions are probably the ones who are saying, are you kidding? I'm half of my day or 3/4 of my day. And there are a few people who spend less. But this is the information that we're getting from a lot of reliable sources and also from 10 years of experience on my side. If you think about that amount of time, what are you doing to increase your productivity in those 2 to 3 hours? And if your answer is, well, I've tried with folders and I've tried this and that, you've got to wonder if that's enough, because most people are still managing their email the way they were doing 25 years ago.
Yes, using flags and folders and all sorts of things to try and help, but in many cases I find it's counterproductive.
Absolutely. There's so much repetitiveness and looking at the same email over and over again. And if we take a look at what's in their inbox, right, you've got those important decisions. You're communicating with your customers and also with your teams and the sales contracts and so on, but then you have so much waste as well, right? You've got all that poor writing, way too much CCing. I know that there are a lot of people have been complaining about that in the survey we just sent out. And then there's all this pseudo spam, what I call pseudo spam. That is, it's not really spam, because spam filters are pretty good today. But there are a lot of mails that we receive that are like, I don't want to put them on my unsubscribe list, but at the same time, they tend to take up a lot of time. They've got really catchy lines to get you interested in them. You start clicking on it, and all of a sudden you're in a YouTube video, right? Yes. And then you've got your late and forgotten mails. And there's a lot of guilt, there's a lot of bad feelings about all of that stuff. Now, to make matters worse, we're not really very efficient and effective with the tool. And luckily, I'm going to tell you in just a moment that it's not all your fault. As a matter of fact, it's only 6% your fault. But I'll get to that. But basically, I'm going to talk about a little bit about Deming and about what he said about process being everything. We're 94%. But I want to really bring to our attention that the way we're working today is not great. We're focused on recent things, last in, first out, instead of the important things. We've lost the opportunities because we have no overview and we're completely overburdened. There's a lot of stress and no real great strategy. Now, I know that you all have kind of created your own ways of working with email, but there isn't anybody like with a master plan that is saying, hey guys, let's think about what is the dream way to do this? What is the best way to do this? And let's get the right tools for you to do it. This then produces a lot of forgotten or late emails, which means unhappy customers, lost business, and not just externally, but internally as well. A lot of complaining internally. Yes,
I talked recently about the fact that it's one part of the business that hasn't been systematized and standardized like so many other things that are processes in a business, like application for leave or raising a purchase order. These are, you might have hundreds, thousands of employees, but it's just one process for some of those things. But when it comes to email, we've got thousands of employees and thousands of different processes. Everyone, as you say, is improvising, doing the best they can, but there hasn't been a master plan for this part of the business.
Yeah, and a lot of that is because it requires the leadership to start that. And email has kind of snuck into our lives and taken over, and it's very difficult to all of a sudden tell everybody this is how we're going to do email. And you don't have to do it that way, and that's the good news. That's the good news about LeanMail, is that we're not here to tell people, okay, we've got a new process and you're going to follow that process. The fact is that it's modularized so that there are a lot of different ways that you can start this according to your needs. But we'll get to that in a moment. But I just want to underline that a number of years ago, Forbes magazine said, email is the leading cause of preventable productivity loss in organizations today. I don't think there's anybody in this audience today that will disagree with that. And I will also add to that about half the time people spend on email is non-productive. Maybe I don't have to sell that too much either.
Yes, I'm sure most people feel that way.
So
any more on this slide, or can we move on to, as we haven't got a lot of time, can we move on to what is LeanMail and why is it different from some of the other approaches and apps to managing this issue?
So let's talk about what's going on today. I think a lot of people are familiar with this I Love Lucy. Well, maybe I'm dating myself. I don't know.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's in black and white. So I think that, at least it's my belief, that everybody wants to do good and everybody wants to be efficient and effective. But as I mentioned earlier, Deming pointed out like 80 years ago that the problem is 94% within the system. And if we're not improving the system, it's really difficult to do much about how we're going to attack this problem. So we really have to go to the system to do this. And although everybody's trying their hardest and their best, doing it is not going to help. What we have to do is not just action, but we have to put 2 steps in front of that. And those 2 steps are prioritize and plan. And that is really the basis of LeanMail. And by the way, you don't have to agree with that. And maybe you like the idea of one of those and not the other, or maybe you like one of our other modules. Right? So there are many different starting points. But if you really get the methodology, you'll start with prioritization because it makes so much sense. And I'll share with you why.
Yeah, great. So tell us about that. And I think a lot of people are not conscious of why that's so important.
I think it's because there's so much mail coming in and they're thinking, I don't have time to answer all this mail. Do you think I'm going to sit around and prioritize everything? What a waste of time. Well, it would be a waste of time if it added more work. But I want to point out that our prioritization system requires no extra work. All it does is substitutes clicking on the next mail with clicking on a button. Same amount of action, but getting a lot of value out of it. But before I get to that, let me explain that if you think of your inbox as a big traffic jam, and you think of the cars as the stuff that you need to do and some junk, but then you see those big white trucks as the profit centers, right? Those are the big projects. Those are the major customers. And if I were mayor, I'd make a left lane for those. And that's exactly what LeanMail does. So what we do is we actually put those trucks at the top of your list by easily just clicking on a button in order to get them there. In this case, it's this red button. And so what happens is if you have those big red trucks at the top, white trucks at the top of your inbox always, that means you're not sorted by date that the mails came in, but sorted by the priority of your mails. You're going to get these 3 major benefits, and they are that your profitability is going to go up because you're working according to 80-20 rule, which is the Pareto principle, which is another important principle of LeanMail. Also, by prioritizing your mails before you get started, your anxiety is going to go way down because you know exactly what's on your plate. You have a very clear idea of what you need to do. And the great thing is that it's not going to add any more work to your plate by doing that, because instead of clicking on the next mail, you're simply clicking on a button up here to advance to the next mail.
Yes,
so that's how
I love it. I mean, you can I found using it, you can so very quickly sort your email, and there's a great sense of being in control and being across everything that's there, knowing what's important and what's not in a really short period of time. And then you can get on with the planning for those higher priorities. But I guess we won't have time to talk too much about the planning step, and we can get to that in our next webinar. Michael, perhaps you could get to the actual solution and describe some of the modules.
I will. I want to put a little bit of focus, though, on there are probably still some people who don't get the prioritization part. And I just want to add another analogy to that, and that is the football field. Imagine that you've got a huge football field, and on that football field, you have Australian dollar notes all over that field. The only problem is that you can't see the denomination of each note. So I give you 1 minute to pick up as much money as you can. You run out into the field. You come back with a certain amount of money. Then I say to you, okay, now I'm going to wave my magic wand, and now you're going to be able to see those notes and what the denomination is. You run back in the field again for another minute, and you pick up at least 5 times as much money, according to Pareto principle, because you're not looking for the 5s and 10s and 20s. You're looking straight for those $100 notes. And that's exactly what happens when you prioritize your mails and you have those high priority mails at the top of your list. You're able to immediately identify what you need to do. Now, of course, there's another part of that, and that is urgency. We'll get to that in another webinar. But every time you open up your inbox in LeanMail, you'll be able to have all your high priority mails at the top of your list. Okay.
Great, yeah, great analogy. So you can see it very quickly. Yes, gotcha.
Great. So let's talk about the solution. So first of all, as I mentioned earlier, LeanMail, actually most recently, because we've moved to this modularized solution, now you can start anywhere you like. And if you look at the different modules here, you'll notice that we have Instant Archive. That's an archiving solution for those of you who are tired of all these multiple folder systems or not even using a folder anymore because you gave up. And instead, we're using meta tagging. We have LeanMail Prioritize. Let's say you just want to do that. Let's say you just want to prioritize your mails, and that's enough to take you to the next level. You can do that. We also have LeanMail Plan, which enables you to actually take notes on your mails and plan them for specific dates very simply. If it wasn't simple, people wouldn't do it. And then we have Inbox 480, which I'll get to in a moment. I'll get into a little bit more detail. And Inbox 480 is precisely that. It's an inbox for 80% of your mails. And then finally, we have CC Protection, which is still in the works. We'll get that out soon. But that's for all of you who want more power over all those people that are CCing you constantly, and we want to have a more offensive approach because a lot of companies are passing out memos, CCing everybody, to tell them not to CC everybody, but it doesn't work. So we'd like a more active approach, proactive approach to that. While you can all start with one of these modules, you can also start with the LeanMail suite. And the LeanMail suite is comprised of Instant Archive, LeanMail Prioritize, and LeanMail Plan. And approximately 80-85% of our customers will start here because they recognize they need all of that. Some customers will also want the Inbox 480. And so we call the LeanMail suite plus Inbox 480 the powerhouse, because this is where we're helping our high volume users, people who are getting at least 40 50 mails a day, and you're just not able to handle that without some extra help. So Inbox 480 automatically separates your non-essential mails from your essential mails. And then we have LeanMail Prioritize, LeanMail Plan, Instant Archive. All together, we need a toolbar for that. And now you're seeing a little bit of toolbar. I don't want to show you too much of the technical stuff because it's really not that important. What's important today is that we get an understanding that there is a tool out there that can really help us, but we first have to understand the methodology, because without understanding the methodology, a tool is useless. Right? And I will even say that without really getting the habit under your fingers, all of it is useless. So
yes.
LeanMail really comprises a method, a tool, and training.
Yeah, that's great. I'll get you to tell us how LeanMail helps us cope with the volume of incoming email, but I'll tell you a story about my experience. About this time last year, I would do a send-receive in the morning, and I would get 60, 80 emails, and I would go through using the control key, and I would cherry-pick a whole lot of email to delete in one hit. And then that became so much that about halfway through last year, I would select all of the emails and then cherry-pick the ones I wanted to keep instead. And it was still taking a lot of work, and I'm getting rid of a lot of the non-essential stuff. I started using the LeanMail tool, the Inbox 480, and suddenly I was only getting half a dozen to 10 of emails that really mattered, because Inbox 480 was filtering those out. So why don't you tell your nightclub story about the concept behind the Inbox 480?
Sure. So if you think about it, when you go to a nightclub, and we all go to nightclubs all the time, right? And when we go to these nightclubs, they don't let everybody into the nightclub and then send somebody around to get them out. Instead, they've got somebody at the door that says, you're in, you're not in. And that's exactly what Inbox 480 does. And that's also the big difference between Inbox 480 and Clutter. Those of you who are familiar with Clutter, the challenge for Gmail, for Microsoft, and the others is they want to automate this process of blocking mails from coming in your inbox. And the problem is that they'll use algorithms to do that, and the algorithms copy your bad habits. What happens with Inbox 480 is that it says no to everything. Well, everything except your own domain. And that means that no mail comes in your inbox. It all goes in the Inbox 480. And then you have to select each individual sender and allow those senders to come into your inbox. So you can imagine the first day, there's a lot of clicking, and the second day, a bit more. But after a few days, then maybe it's 2 or 3. I mean, how many new senders do you get every day? Not too many. So this works really well because you're making it a conscious decision, not some algorithm that's copying your bad habits. So basically, the problem that Inbox 480 is solving is that email right now enters your inbox without prejudice. And especially if you don't even have clutter, or, well, that's gone now. But now there's something called Focus, which is trying to do the same thing, but I'm not sure it's doing too well either. But how much of that mail do you believe is essential in your inbox, right? By the way, you have to delete that. So all the stuff that you don't want in your inbox, you're actually physically deleting. Inbox actually deletes that mail over time, and you decide how much time. If you want it to be there, I have it for 3 days. If somebody else says, well, I want to be able to look at that for a week, fine, 2 weeks, a month, I don't care. And by the way, Inbox 480 tags that mail with a category saying that it is the one that deleted the mail. So when you go to your deleted items, worst case scenario, you'll find it there, and it'll tell you that Inbox 480 deleted it. So, all those hours that you're spending on mails that you didn't want go away. Here's what that looks like. So you have the mails that you want close to you. You give that the thumbs up. You want them sometimes. They're going to go into Inbox 480. And then you have spam. So it also takes care of spam in between these 3 clicks.
Yeah, so with one click, you can just decide whether this sender is going to be allowed into your inbox or stays in Inbox 480 or gets rid of and never see again.
Yeah, it's per sender, not per email. So once you've taken care of a sender, all the mails will come into your inbox.
In future. So every time I get an email from Michael, it's allowed in future. Yep. So perhaps you can give us a review of the 2-step process. I think have you covered enough there, or should we move on to...
I think, we don't have too much time left, so I thought perhaps we should just show the kind of before and after shots and then see how much further we can get. But basically, most inboxes kind of look like this. This inbox only has about 90 mails in it, and I'm sure most of you have a lot more than that. And that's also another big problem because you're having to search for things and so on. So let me show you now what the new you could look like. And let me just walk you through this diagram here, or this screenshot. Basically, the first thing that you're going to experience is that no longer are your mails sorted by received. Instead, all your mails are always sorted by priority, no matter what day your mails are due. So that's the first thing, and you can imagine that helps a lot with business, making sure that you're capitalizing and leveraging your email as best as possible. Then the second thing you're going to see is that you have a view, and this is a particular view in LeanMail called the Today view, in which you can see all the mails that are due today. So now you see all the mails that are due today in priority order. Pretty hard to get more effective than that. Well, we can go one step further, and that is to make sure that you can see exactly what you need to do. Because in LeanMail, we do not write next actions on every single mail. That would be crazy. All the mails that you can answer using David Allen's 2-minute rule, you answer. But those mails that you can't answer because you're waiting for a response from somebody, or maybe you just don't have the time to do it or don't want to do it, you're going to actually make a decision the first time you read that to decide, okay, this is what I have to do next. So this way you can start to get an order of things. And if you follow our method correctly, you'll actually be able to group your emails by the different people you need to speak to or contact, or the different meetings you have, and so forth. So this is what it could look like for you. And now let me take you through this process of how this works. So I think we all remember this hamster wheel, and there are a number of people who were complaining about feeling that way.
People feel like that, yeah.
What happens is we read a mail, we'll analyze it, and then, oh, well, I don't know what to do about that. I don't feel like doing that. We'll do nothing. And then we come back to it again, and so round and round we go. Not all mails, but quite a lot of them. So with LeanMail, you always do something, and you're not doing something right if you don't do something every single time you click on a mail. So first of all, if you can reply in 10 seconds or less, you're going to do that. Now, that's not a lot of time. So, and because we don't want to take you off the track of your prioritization. Then once you're prioritized, then anything you start with the high priority mails after that, and anything that you can do in less than 2 minutes, you take care of. That leaves you with a subset of mails still in priority order, and you decide then what the next action is and when you're going to do it. And when you've done that, you're set for success. That's the way the process works. Two-step process, right? So simple, and yet if you don't have a tool to enable you to do that, impossible.
What I've liked about it is that the tool prompts that helps the thinking. Without it, you have to make it up all in your head every time. It's manual labour. It's like I talk to my customers about what's the difference between a blank bit of paper and a page out of a diary. They're both blank bits of paper, but one of them's got a structure and it asks you the questions and gets it out of your head. You don't have to make it up from scratch on a blank bit of paper all the time.
Yeah.
And it's terrific. You do minimal thinking and the tool captures that thinking so that you don't have to retain the thinking. It's there, it's done, and you can come back to it at the appropriate time.
Spot on. I like that analogy.
What I really like about the ability to quickly prioritise the inbox is that dopamine impact. We get a dopamine hit when we look at an email or we click like or do something, and so we can get that feel good for being across our email, and that becomes, for some more than others, but that becomes addictive. It's great. It's a great feeling. You know where you're up to and what you're across.
Yeah. So true, because you can go home every day, and you should go home every day with an empty inbox. And that's the nicotine hit that you get. Right? Once you start to understand that process, once you have gone home 10 times with an empty inbox, you're hooked.
Yes. I mean, it's the way we should all be doing it. We've been putting up with it the other way for so long that we've accepted that that's the status quo, and it shouldn't be the case, should it?
I'm just thinking, Stuart, we've run out of time.
Yes.
So maybe, even though it's the favorite part of LeanMail, maybe we should save archiving for the next webinar. What do you think?
Why don't you just give us a 60-second overview of what it does so that we don't leave people hanging.
Fine.
But the great thing here is just one-click archiving, isn't it? What's that about?
Yeah. I just want to respect people's time, but yes. I will say this, that LeanMail archiving is the favorite tool, the favorite module of LeanMail. And the reason why that is because finally you can find your mails. Finally, you can get rid of all those sub folders and have one folder where you can find everything. And the way we do that is simply that we're leveraging categories. So we're tagging mails with categories in one folder. So now you can use that as a matrix, and you can sort by person, you can sort by category, you can sort by subject, you can sort by so many different things. There's also notes. You can take notes on mails and you can sort by notes. So hopefully in the next webinar, we'll be able to talk a little bit more about that. And of course, feel free to contact us, and we'll be glad to walk you through all of these different things personally.
Great, thanks, Michael. We'll wrap up there. We'll stay on now for some question and answer. But for those who are about to leave, Michael, thanks for that. I think people can get to see that there's a lot to the issue, and that a lot of thinking's gone into solutions to solve what is a fairly complex issue. And looking forward to learning more about it as the weeks and months unfold. So for those who've got to go, thanks for participating. We'll follow up with you in due course and look forward to hearing from you next time. For those that are staying on, Michael, one of the questions is LeanMail keystroke enabled?
Yeah, absolutely it is. For those of you who want to use your keyboard, we have commands that you can use in order to do the prioritization and also the archiving. And as a matter of fact, one of the rules that we have in archiving is that you're not allowed to use your mouse, because if you start using your mouse, you're going to slow that down. So it makes it very quick to archive your mails.
Yeah, great. And so what are the main benefits? I'll just come back to Buzz's question. This is, Michael, it's Buzz at ActiveWords. Can I name a script that would work inside LeanMail, is his question.
Well, Buzz, I think we should talk about that. If there's, and I've wondered about that myself, because I'm a big fan of ActiveWords. And if the audience doesn't know what ActiveWords is, look it up immediately after this program. It's a great time saver. But I'm not sure what kind of script we could run, but I'm very open to those ideas. be a great synergy.
Great. Next question, Michael, what are the main benefits for the individual and for the organisation from using LeanMail?
Well, for the individual, of course, you're going to save about half the time that you spend on email. You're going to cut down all your stress. For the organization, I think it's, for both the individual and the organization, you're going to take care of your 8 customers first. You're going to make sure that you're never late with a mail. And I mean never. You will make sure that you're as effective as possible with email. So I think those are very important things for an organization as well as an individual.
Yeah, great. Does everyone in the organisation have to use it for it to be effective?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Of course, you just push the bottleneck further away. But no, you can have it, and your colleague next to you doesn't need to have it, simply because the add-in itself is client-based and doesn't reside on any server.
So how can people get the add-in?
They can contact us. They can come to send an email to info@leanmail.com or contact us at our homepage. Or,
because of course,
by all means, they should contact you. Most of the people at this webinar today are in Australia. They should be contacting you.
Yeah, and it's much more than just an app, isn't it? It's a whole solution. It's a combination of training in the process as well as having the tool to then maximise that process.
Yeah, very important, because no one has ever succeeded fixing email with just an app, and I don't think we could either. We have to work with our habits, and so that's why we include training in the solution. So I would say in the order of importance, it's first the methodology, the training, and then finally the add-in, which enables you to do the various things that you need to do. But without training, you're probably going to go back to your old habits.
Yes, and that's my great interest in LeanMail, is that I've been teaching people and training them in the process, but a lot of falling back because they're working with the tool that doesn't support that doesn't help that doesn't retain that. It's still all got to be done with an effort, with self-discipline, with willpower. And if we could just have a tool, make it easier, I think the habits would stick more strongly and much more sustainably, which is my great attraction to it.
Well, if you recall, I mean, we started out without software, because our intention, I never intended to be a software company, and I tried not to for a very long time, but I realized there's just no way that we can maintain those habits correctly without some sort of braces. Without a tool, you can try to remember to do things, but it's so different when you have something that's pulling you to do the work in the right way. It's like a magnet pulling you through your work. So it's very different than trying to remember to do things, and it's very tiring if you don't have that kind of help.
And of course, with the volume that people are having to face these days, you just can't keep up with it with a manual or mental system. Yeah. Michael, we're down to the last couple of minutes of our 45 minutes. So what are we going to do to help people? What sort of offer can we make to those that are listening who want to have a bit of a taste or an experience of LeanMail? Let's
give everybody 20% discount on the training and the software.
So we'll send out a follow-up email and people can respond to that. But that's great. I think that what we've seen from today, that this is an issue that's well worth a few more of these sorts of webinars. Thanks to everyone for joining us. You can contact me, Stuart Snooks, via my website or via email or phone or LinkedIn. We have a recording available. We'll send you the link to that. And we look like running these webinars on a regular basis in the future. So I'd love to hear from you what topics would be of interest to you. Anything regarding managing overload or even general workplace productivity and effectiveness. Let's wrap up. Thanks for your involvement, and bye-bye for now. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you, Stuart, and thank you, everybody, for taking the time and prioritizing your time for this. Appreciate it.